Hi, everyone. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. So please shout out if you can. I just want to make sure that I'm working and I'm coming in loud and clear. Welcome to today's session, which is assessing your MBA profile. My name is Rachel Beck, and I'm a senior consultant with mbaMission. And we are just so happy to be here and really thankful to Beat the GMAT for inviting us to come and have this session with you. We hope it's really, really useful. This is such a great time of year to really be assessing your MBA profile. Those of you who are applying for next fall or next winter, this is the time to really say, okay, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? What could I improve on? There's still time to make improvements. So I hope that you find this session useful. We are going to spend, where's my, oh, we're here. We are going to spend the next, I would say, 35 to 40 minutes going through this presentation. If you have questions along the way, of course, feel free to jump in, but please try to keep them on the broader side and not so narrow toward your personal experiences. mbaMission offers free personal consultations, and at the end of the presentation, on the last slide, I will give the email address uh, where you can find that information, where you can sign up for them. So please, please, please um, don't hesitate to sign up for our free consultations where you can ask any questions about yourself. So here's our agenda right here, and here's my little pen here. We are going to, and for some reason my pen isn't working. Pen color, here we go. We are going to start out, oh, that's not bright at all. Sorry about that. We're going to start out by spending the first little bit talking about getting in the mind of the MBA admissions officer. Doesn't everybody want to know what the MBA admissions officer is thinking about? I know I do. Then we're going to talk about the quantitative. Oh, can you guys hear me now? I'm hearing that I might not be loud enough. Um, the quantitative application metrics, and then we're going to turn to the qualitative application metrics. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about mbaMission, which is the world's leading admissions consultancy, of course. And then I'm going to take your questions. So let's get started. So what is the biggest challenge facing admissions officers? That's the $1,000,000 question here. And for them, it's really about creating the right class out of an applicant pool. So look here, this is what we have. We have HBS, and I'm just going to tell you that we're going to be talking a lot about the top MBA, US MBA programs, and that's just because we have the most data on those programs. But this really applies to programs across the board, international programs, other programs in the US. But a lot of the data we're going to have here really is just talking about the top programs, but just use the theme of it when looking at your own applications. So look here, you can see that HBS gets more than, oh, and my pen didn't work. Oop, I'm sorry there. HBS gets over 9,000 applications a year. Okay, and the goal is to have about 900 people in every class. So they accept about 12% of their applicant pool, so about 1,100 people to get to a class of 900 essentially, which isn't a lot if you really think about it. 9,000 people are applying for really 900 spots. Um, so the issue here really is about managing scarcity. I mean, they're really trying to figure out how they're going to take all these excellent candidates and fit them into the too few places. We often use a statistic like this, which is probably not really scientific, but something like 70% of the people applying to business school absolutely could get in. Their qualifications are fine. So how come only 12% are accepted? And there's no way to know exactly who exactly gets in and who doesn't, but you have to have a good sense of what they're looking for. Okay, moving on here. So how do they manage these scarce resources? when they're choosing a class, they have to consider all of their various stakeholders. That's something really, really important. So um, we have the professors, and the professors, they want students who will make their classroom. Oh, and I keep doing that by accident. I'm sorry. They want students who will make their classroom discussions dynamic and bring really interesting backgrounds and experiences to the table. So that really has to do with that, their academic potential and their fit, as you see here. In terms of the students, they want peers who will challenge and teach them. They want to work in learning teams with other students who are interesting and possess strong interpersonal skills. Then you have alumni, and alumni want a class of students who are going places, right? They want people who they can poach for jobs, or who will make their school look better and add to the brand reputation. Then there are recruiters, and recruiters want students who have that tremendous leadership potential. Um, they want people with drive, and they're going to make something of their career. And then you have the dean, and the dean, he wants students who are really going to represent the school. He wants strong academics, but he also wants people who, again, have that leadership potential. And you can see here, we mention that leadership potential kind of over and over again. It's part of this dean too. It's right here. That's really, really important. That's what they're looking for. So these are the areas that the admissions committee is going to assess you on. And we're going to get more in depth um, with each one of these, but I'll kind of briefly go through them. So they're going to look at your academic potential in terms of your undergraduate grades, in terms of your academic rigor, your GMAT score, types of designations you might have. They're going to look at your experience and that potential that I was just talking about, that leadership potential, um, your growth of your career, the community activities you're involved in, your personal accomplishments. They're going to look at your interpersonal skills. Really, this is where the recommendations become really, really, really important, and the interview. Um, I've seen clients who have unbelievable profiles, and then you get to their recommendation, and the recommendation is so clear that this person doesn't really have great interpersonal skills. So you really want to pick people for your recommendations who are going to really, really talk about you as a person and your strengths and your weaknesses and your accomplishments, and that's really important. And then lastly, they're really going to look at, do you fit with this program? That's really important. Is it right for you, and is it right for them? And that's going to come through in every part of the application, as we say right here. And also when you're visiting the class and networking, is it right? And remember, some programs you might think are the right program for you, but once you start out there and doing the research, you realize that's not the right place for me. And so that fit is really about, and we write here, mutual fit. It's not just about what they think about you, but what you think about them. Okay, so let's just start with the quantitative application metrics. And we're going to try to look at those different factors and kind of run through what we were just kind of gave the overview for. So in terms of academic potential, you have your GPA. Oh, I did it again. I keep forgetting my pen. I'm sorry. You have your GPA. You have your GMAT score. The designations like the CFA, the CPA, whatever it might be, and additional courses. So we get questions all of the time. Is a 670 enough to get into school XYZ? I have a 3.1 GPA. Can I apply to school XYZ? And the simple answer is yes, you can apply. If the schools had a cutoff, why would they take time to look at your application, your essays, and your resume? Why would they hold information sessions to recruit you or interview you? They do not have cutoffs. If they did, they would say it somewhere on their websites. They don't operate that way. They're looking beyond the numbers. And I'm going to walk you through how to do that. Okay, so let's talk about GPA for a second. We're always getting questions about what is a competitive GPA. Okay, so you look at the list that I have here, and you see that uh, these are kind of made up numbers, but let's say at Harvard Business School, a competitive GPA is a 3.66. And at Wharton, a competitive GPA is a 3.56. And Columbia, it's a 3.50. So then one might assume that a 3.5 or a 3.6 is a competitive GPA, but it's not that simple. It really, really isn't that simple. Um, Now look here. What's a competitive GPA? It's based on so many different factors. Think about all the different things that actually go into a GPA. Okay. What grading scale did you use in college? Okay. Think about it. Was there grade inflation? Foreign colleges are much less likely to inflate grades than US schools. Okay. What was your major? If you majored in engineering at a top school, then the admissions committee recognizes that your GPA might not be the same as someone who majored in political science at a less competitive school. And I feel 100% confident in saying that because I was a political science major and I know that my course load was not half as demanding as my friends who are engineers. So I know that from my personal experience. Um, what was your class rank? They may look at your grades compared to where you were in the class. So maybe a 3.5 GPA puts you in the top 20% at one school, but in the top 50% at another school. So that tells them something about the rigor regarding your institution. Did you work during college? If you work during college, then that's something that they take note of. Um, were you involved in other activities? Were you really a leader on campus? That matters to them a lot. In terms of um, your time through college, did you have that upward trajectory in terms of your grades? Did you show significant improvement over time? Maybe you started out really badly. We hear this all the time. I got to college, I couldn't focus. It was my first time living away from home, but then suddenly you turned it around. So maybe you have a 3.2 GPA, but your last 3 years you really had like a 3.5. So they like seeing that also. And how about, did you take quant or management courses? If you bombed your quant courses, then you better have a good reason why. So those are just some things to think about, and they're kind of the stories behind the GPA. So that's why you can't just say, my GPA was this, and so can I really apply to that school because it's not high enough? Well, there's probably lots of different stories behind your GPA. We can look at the GMAT with the same lens, okay? So it would be easy to say that the cutoff at a lot of the top schools would be 700 with an 80th percentile in quant and verbal. Okay, it would be really easy for us to say, yes, that's it. That's a good qualifier. If you don't get that, you're never going to get in. But that is just not that's not a fair assessment at all. And we know that there are plenty of people. Look here, this is a big one. Um, get in with lower scores, and you can see even in these there were lower scores. The big thing is when you have these lower scores, you have to ask yourself, well, what do these people really have to offer? Clearly, they something that convinced the admissions committee that these people possess something really unique, and that's what helped them get into business school. Um, I look at Columbia with great interest, and I know I'm going to talk about Columbia a lot because that happens to be where I went, and so I have a lot of information about that, and I happen to do a lot of Columbia applications. So I'm sorry if I talk about that all the time. Ignore it. Um, but I've had a few clients in the last two admission cycles get in with scores well below this. Okay. Scores that a lot of people would be probably like fearful to apply because it's outside of the range. But they got in, and one of them got a call from the dean saying, we found your application to be so interesting and wonderful and unique, and she got in, and that was a real affirmation to me that they are willing to look beyond the numbers. Additionally, I want to also point out that we've heard from some admissions directors that sometimes they relish rejecting applicants with the 770, 780, 790 GMAT scores because those people think that they're golden just because they got the high score without realizing that they still need to put together a very thorough application that's going to be looked at holistically. So just keep that in mind. So let's move here. So more specifically, what do they look for within the GMAT score? The quant score is looked at more critically than the verbal, so we'll say that. Many of the top schools do like to see at least the 80th percentile in quant, but that's not a hard and fast rule at all. They also like to see your scores kind of in relation to your GPA. How do they show consistency? Remember, there is no score cutoff. So if your dream is to go to a certain school and you have a unique proposition to show the admissions committee about who you are, you could get in. It is possible. Um, Kind of building on that, here are a few other questions we often get regarding other parts of the GMAT. So first, let's talk about a little the AWA score. And no one has probably ever been rejected for a low AWA score, but it's used as a good fraud detector. So if your score and your essay seem very much out of sync, it could be a red flag. I've had clients who've scored poorly on the AWA, and they also have scored kind of poorly on the TOEFL, and so they've been asked by some well-known schools to take a writing course before they actually matriculate in school. So that's something a little bit interesting. Um, as I said, no one's not getting into business school before it, but it's a good way for them to get a sense of what your that ability is for you. The new integrated reasoning section, getting a lot of questions about that. Probably won't be heavily weighted, if at all, in your application because it's too new. However, if you bomb it, it could raise a red flag. So if you get a very poor score on that and it's totally out of sync with the rest of your application, you might want to consider taking the GMAT again just to pull it up so it doesn't create this weird, like, how did that happen? And then what about the GRE? This is a biggie because a lot of people are now considering taking the GRE versus the GMAT, and a lot of schools have started to take the GRE. So I always say, first, make sure the schools that you're interested in accept the GRE, and then consider if is that the right exam for you. For people who are don't come from a quantitative background, uh, it might be a good choice just because it's a little bit easier on that quant side. If you're coming from a consulting or finance background, I would stick with the GMAT. I wouldn't take the GRE, but I will say I don't consider the GRE a sign of weakness at all. If the school says it accepts it, it accepts it. Don't read into it thinking, oh, well, no. If they say they accept it, they accept it. Okay, so now we're moving on to these designations and courses. And some candidates have these, extra designations or have taken additional courses that can really help boost their credentials. You don't need to have any of these, but if you do, it can often help offset a low GPA or show the admissions committee a bit about your quant ability. So the CFA is the Chartered Financial Analyst. The CAIA is the Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst. The CPA is Certified Public Accountant. PMP is the Project Management Professional. We have Six Sigma, which is a process improvement program. So, for instance, if you took the CFA but had no quant courses in your undergrad, you could absolutely point to the CFA as a great example that you really have that quantitative ability. And that's a wonderful thing to have. Taking additional courses in areas such as finance and accounting can also serve as this alternate transcript. We talk about alternate transcripts a lot at mbaMission because sometimes people want to show the admissions committee that they really have the ability. And so I often say, take a few courses to build that alternate transcript. It can help. I'm not going to say undo, but a little bit offset poor college grades. It can help show about the quant background. It also can just give you some tools before you head into business school. We get asked a lot, and I just wanted to throw this in here about which programs are considered okay when you're taking these other courses. And I would say my big tips are make sure it's accredited because that gives it a lot of legitimacy. In person is preferred, but if you only have time to do it online, then do it online. And if you're accepted in an MBA program, they will do a background check to make sure you actually took the courses you say you did. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Um, so right here, one thing I want to point out is that many candidates with low GMAT scores, this is a question I get a lot, try to look for ways to kind of offset their scores. They take courses, they look for quant experiences at work. It doesn't necessarily work like that perfectly, okay? First, try to take the test again. I was just on a consultation earlier today with someone who I was really encouraging him, take the GMAT one more time. You've only taken it once. Go in and take it one more time. You have a decent score. Let's see if we can get you to a really good score. You can take it multiple times. I usually say by the time you get to the third time that you know what your score is going to be. But if you can boost that score, that can really change where you might consider applying. And schools only take the best score, so remember that. If you can't get it higher, then you might want to add a school or schools that fall a little bit more in your range. So maybe you're going to reach a little bit based on your score, but you also should make sure you have, I don't want to call them a safety school, but make sure that you have a one or two schools that you would be happy going to a little bit further down the ranking list. Um, so if you add kind of all these components together, um, it's basically this qualitative sense that you can handle the program. And that's what they're trying to get a sense of. So let's play a little bit of Jeopardy here. And I kind of gave this away a little bit before, but the question being asked here is how many applicants have those credentials, have all those good stuff, and wait, I think I oops, say 70%. My slide's a little messed up, I was noticing. So basically, as I was saying before, 70% of the applicants to Harvard Business School and basically every other school are totally qualified. They just don't take 70%. So what's going to make you stand out? And that's where that qualitative data comes into play. So now we're going to turn there. And this is what I think is the more interesting part of the application. It's not just about your ability to take a test and what you did in undergrad. This is about who you are as a person. And this is really where you can separate yourself from other people. So I love this slide because it's basically about assessing your professional profile. And these are basically all the myths that I hear all the time. Admissions officers hate bankers. Okay. So that's something I hear a lot from people who are in the banking industry. Admissions officers love bankers. And that's what I hear from people who aren't in banking. And then I should be a banker. I shouldn't be a banker. Should I write my application to say I want to be a banker? And the truth is really it has nothing to do with banking at all. It has to do with the fact that admissions officers aren't looking for a type. And this is so incredibly important. They aren't. They're looking to pull together a class that is diverse and dynamic. In some years, that will mean more bankers, maybe, but it often will mean that classes in business school are extremely diverse. Like, look at these different kinds of, yes, organic farmers, they're in there, speech writers, teachers, government workers, chefs, yes. A lot of people in nonprofits, social media, salespeople, middle managers. I have lots of technologists that I work with, engineers, PhDs. I always talk about my class at Columbia. At Columbia, you travel with the same 60 to 65 people a lot during your first year. And in my cluster, as it's called, there were so many diverse people in that cluster. I was a journalist, as was somebody else that was in the cluster. There was a ballet dancer, there was an Olympic fencer, there was an opera singer. There were two people who worked at rape crisis counselors. There was a bunch of people who worked in advertising and PR, in fashion and those kind of fields. There was somebody was a playwright. So Yeah, there were bankers and consultants, but the rest of us were the majority. And I think that's something really, really, really important. Um, in moving to this slide here, so what are they looking for? They're really looking for people who have these strong leadership potential. I know I keep saying that term. They really want people with the promotions and that increase in responsibility. They want that successful product leadership. They want people who really help other people succeed. They want people who are really good at self awareness and how they can improve themselves, and that whole idea of initiation and creation. Um, they really, really want that person that's on their way up. It really doesn't matter how long you've worked anywhere. Just that doesn't matter. It's what you've put into it. So it's all about impact. That's what we say a lot. It's about impact. They are not looking for that time served, that just showing up. They don't want people to show up. There's too many people who just show up, but what are you as a person doing to make yourself stand out? And that's what you want to get across in your application, in your essays. So, one of the most important aspects of the application is how you present your career goals. Um, and this, for instance, is this ambitious but attainable goals. And it's kind of funny. I was a software engineer, but when I get out of my MBA program, I want to work at a hedge fund. Well, that might be your real goal, but that's that sounds like a big stretch to say to the admissions committee. So really think, well, what are the skills that you built as a software engineer, and how could they apply to going to work at a hedge fund? So that's number one. Number two, was working at a hedge fund a long dream of yours? Have you always been interested in investing? How did this come about? You don't want just kind of off the wall career choices. You want your career goal to kind of make sense, to kind of fit in neatly with, you want a logical flow from your past to your present to your future and how it all fits together. Just something to know here on the mbaMission website, we have this great, great, great personal statement guide that's for free. You can download it for free. It's terrific. And it will really help you get from software engineer to hedge fund, and how to kind of lay out your steps that you need to take in order to really build that strong but believable career goals. Up here. Are your goals credible? Do you need an MBA to get there? Does your target school facilitate such opportunities? So that all those things are very, very important. Okay, so assessing your community profile. Um, this has to do with that life outside of work component. And a lot of people will refer to it in terms of community service, but I like to think of it more as that engagement with the world, or evidence that you're a good person. Yes, it can include community service, um, but you really want, you can broaden it even more. How are you tied to your community? Okay. So, yes, we understand that some communities make it, some industries make it very difficult to work in community service because you're working a million hours. But think of things that you are doing in your own community. It could even be your work community. I've had clients who are chained to their desk, but they've developed these like wonderful lunch and learns, which is really giving back. Um, the admissions committee really understands that candidates have diverse interests and demands. They understand that. That's why they're just looking for you to be you. But what do you do? What keeps you busy? They're not counting hours. They're counting what you're interested in and how you're committing to it. And that's not, they're not saying, well, she does 15 hours a week, he does 3. They're looking at how this really impacts you as a person. And you have to think of it in terms of the opportunity. This is a great opportunity to diversify and differentiate yourself from other people. If you're coming from that finance or consulting background, your life outside of work can play a great, great role in helping you stand out. It really offers this great opportunity to lead. If you're involved in these outside activities, they're a great opportunity to take on responsibility that maybe you're not getting in your professional life. And they also show these or reveal these complementary and supplementary angles of who you are that really, really can be strong components in your application. Remember that admissions officers really want to know who you are holistically, and so they want these multidimensional people in their ranks. They really want people who are diverse and different and just interested in different things. I've had clients who talk about like joining a volleyball team and becoming the captain and then teaching kids in inner cities how to play volleyball. Like that's like something just fun, and it wasn't painful for her to do it. It was really fun, and every interview she went on, they were like, tell us about volleyball, and that was great. And there are all these other things, the triathlons, the poems, your travel, amazing, commitments to family. They are just looking for what we call personal leadership, so keep that in mind. um, Remember that it's not just the admissions committee, but you also are assessing your fit for the school. So every school is not the same. They might not all work for you. You might want something really specific. So you need to figure out what that is. So these are what we go through to help people figure out what's the right fit for me. So some of the things is, you know, a lot of people will say reputation, prestige, and we'll just look at the rankings. But what's the reality? You know, is that the right school for you? Location. Do you want to be in a city or in a college town? It makes a difference. Some people just don't want to be in a city. They prefer a more rolling campus where everybody comes to business school and is in that city for 2 years together, really getting to know each other. Class size, some schools are a lot bigger than others. If you're going to Tuck, there's 250 people in your class. If you're going to HBS, there's 900. Which school do you feel more comfortable in? Which method of teaching suits you better, case versus lecture? Some people don't like the case study method because it can be a little bit intimidating at first. Other people are like, that's why I want to go to business school, because I want to learn how to think that way. In terms of the core curriculum, a mandatory core is very popular at a lot of these schools. Some schools offer a completely flexible schedule. What works for you? In terms of recruiting, look up the employment report offered at every one of these schools and see, are they targeting in the employment report. Sorry, I'm tripping over my own words. In the employment report, they will tell you what companies are coming to campus, and you will be able to see if, hey, I want to go to UCLA, but I really want to go live in Miami after graduation. Well, 75% of the graduates, and I'm making that number up, of UCLA stay in the state of California. Oh no, maybe that's not the right school for me, or I'll have to do a lot more work to get back to Miami. So consider that. Specializations, does your school have an amazing program in marketing that you really want to go there for, or is the marketing faculty a little bit thin? In terms of alumni base, where are people located? Are people really committed? That really matters because that can help your network over your life. In terms of facilities, people kind of laugh at me when I say this, but a lot of people forget that the facilities are really important. You're going to be spending the better part of the next 2 years in these facilities. So are they what you're looking for? Do they have a good place for you to study? Is there a cafeteria? The cafeteria is where I found that I made a lot of great relationships with professors and other students because we could grab a sandwich for lunch, and that went a long way. In terms of professors, are they really just, professors all the time? Or are they, practitioners who are running a hedge fund during the day and teaching at your school at night? What matters to you? That's what's most important. Additionally, getting to know your target program so you can really help assess your fit is crucial. Go on to a lot of the schools now have admissions officers writing blogs. Go look for them. We have a great blog chock full of content, a lot of interviews with admissions directors. So look there. We also have insider guides for 15 schools, which really goes in depth for those schools. There's also message boards, but I always say when you're looking at the message boards, take it with a grain of salt because um, the message boards can be hijacked by people with their own interests. So you can't ever say that the message boards, the chat boards are fact. Um, Go to informational sessions in your cities. If you're living in major cities, I'm sure that there will be people who come around. They have business school fairs. Show up, meet people. And if you're willing to go that extra mile, and I always love the extra mile if you're willing to do it, go visit those campuses if you can. It is so worth it. Meet with alumni. If you're in a city that you can't get you're interested in Stanford and you're living in Atlanta and you're like, I just can't afford to go across the country now and do this, um, call the Stanford Alumni Club in Atlanta, and I'm sure they'll connect you with some alumni. And I think that would be a great way to get to know more about the school firsthand. Additionally, get in touch with current students. One of the best pieces of advice I give my clients is I say to them, listen, of the schools you're interested in, find a club that you think you really want to be part of. So let's say I really wanted to be, my client really wanted to be part of like the Green Club. Then I would say, go find their website, because almost all these clubs have some kind of website or it's within the website of the business school, and see who the officers are, and then shoot a few of them an email saying, I'm really interested in clean energy, and I'm applying to Columbia, and I would really love to hear about your experiences at Columbia and kind of the offerings for somebody who wants to go, into a green field. Do you have 10 minutes for me? um, People will always call you back. You're not asking for a job, you're just really asking for some career advice. They'll always call you back. And those are great people to have, because some schools actually ask you, who do you know at the school? And sometimes it really comes in useful when working on your essay, saying, I talked to this person and they told me about this thing going on campus, which you would never know about otherwise. And then when it comes time to actually expressing your fit, it's really, really important to make it really work. So I'm going to just read this one out loud first. So Columbia is a great school for entrepreneurs, and New York is an exciting place for me to take professional risks. As so many great fortunes have been built in the city, I really believe that the Lang Center for Entrepreneurship offers the wealth of resources necessary for me to take the next step as an entrepreneur. Okay, so now we're going to give you another example. Okay, so this is another example, and then we'll compare them. As an aspiring entrepreneur in the online education field, I know that flexibility will be crucial to my success and that I will need to constantly challenge my assumptions. For this reason, I would seize the opportunity to participate in the entrepreneurial sounding board process by scheduling a session with Russell Sardar, whose vast experience in online education will no doubt lead to an invaluable critique of my ideas. Therefore, I would hope to take my refined concept to the Lang Center's incubator. So as you can see with the first example, things like this mean nothing to the reader. Um, Offers the wealth of resources. What are the wealth of resources? What is the next step? Here, we really learn a little bit more. This is so specific here, the entrepreneurial sounding board. We name a person and what this person, knowing this person, will actually do for the client. So that's or the applicant, that's what's really, really, really important. That's the way you express your fit. How you say to them, this is the right school for me because this is what you offer me and how it's going to really help me. So here, what we have here is how we're going to assess your MBA scorecard. So let's say we have academic ability and your GPA is very good. You also have a good GMAT. You also maybe have your CFA. Professional impact and initiative, also good. Achievement beyond the professional sphere, good. Ambitious, realistic goals, which can be achieved with an MBA, good. So this person is looking very, very good up until this point. Fit with the target program, that's not looking so good. maybe they didn't really show the admissions committee that this is the right program for them. They used a lot of generalizations, which made it seem like they hadn't really put the time in to figure out why this was the right school. And then application execution, the essays, the recommendation, the resume, the short answers, they kind of fell short. So in the end, that person is really, it's on, that person's on the fence, might not get in. Here we have another person, okay, whose grades are okay. Let's let's call it a 3.0, 3.1. GMAT is good. Doesn't have a CFA or anything. Very good professional impact and initiative. Good achievement outside of work. Good realistic goals. Perfect fit with the target program. Good execution. Gets in. So you could just see the difference there between two people. Just because you have good grades and good GMAT, if you're not good at kind of showing why you're a good fit for that school, it can all fall apart. So that's and I'm sorry if I was racing through that a little bit, but I wanted to give time for questions. And I left about 20 minutes or so, but just quickly let me go through these slides and then we'll start asking them. So if anyone has questions, you can start writing them in. So as soon as I'm done with these slides, hopefully we can turn to questions. So mbaMission, we're not just a website, we're really a firm. Our team is really front and center. We have these great relationships with groups like Beat the GMAT. So we're already working for you. We really have strong admissions experience. I was an alumni interviewer at Columbia. We have lots of different people who worked in capacities and admissions at Stanford and Wharton and Kellogg, et cetera. We have tons of different events going on. We have our book, The Complete Start to Finish MBA Admissions Guide, and we have different types of services. Our centerpiece service is our Complete Start to Finish process, which is a basically all-inclusive service. You buy either a 1 school, 2 school, 3 school, 4 school, 5 school, 6 school, 7 school package. It's unlimited. We help you craft your essay ideas, help you with your resume, help you with interview skills, help you decide on recommenders, help you with scholarships, whatever it is. We also have some hourly services too, which could cover the same thing as the complete start to finish process. It's just a different model. We also offer a terrific boot camp, which is coming up. The dates will be on a slide a little further on, which is basically a 1 week dive into the application process. It's great if you want to do start working on one school and just kind of start to get your ideas in order. It meets I think 3 or 4 nights, plus there's a session, a one-on-one session with the person who's leading that, and it's really affordable. So you basically get 10 or 12 hours of work for about $500, at least for the ones that are coming up now. As you can see, our team, this is just some of our team here. Catherine, former Stanford admissions reader, Monica, so much HBS experience. Lynn, also HBS. I'm here. I worked at the Associated Press. Kevin, Wharton MBA admissions committee. We have so many diverse backgrounds and experiences that we hope we can really fit with what your experiences are too. And here's my last slide and a few things I wanted to point to, just so you know. Our blog, as I mentioned, great, chock full of information. This is our free personal statement guide. I'm going to leave this slide up so you guys can see this. This is great. It's free. I was talking at the beginning about free consultations. You can sign up right here at this address, and the free consultations will, any of our consultants will spend a half an hour with you talking about whatever you want to talk about. Sign up. It is free. There's no strings attached. As I mentioned, we have a boot camp coming up very shortly. As a matter of fact, May 28th. Was that 28th? It's covering my slide. May 28th, sorry, May 28th and 30th, June 1st and the 10th. It's basically 4 sessions are included for $4.99. That's an incredible deal, and it's a great program. It really will help you kind of just jumpstart your applications. We're also offering an online presentation June 6th from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Eastern on choosing the right B school. So as I was discussing that fit component, this whole presentation talks about fit. So now I'm going to, and if you need to reach me, you can always reach me here, info@mbaMission.com. So I'm going to start looking at some of the questions now, and I hope I can get through a bunch of them. Okay, let's see. Any good suggestions on study for the IR section? The official GMAT materials are a little scarce on tips for that section. Unfortunately, I don't do any coaching at all on the GMAT. And I feel like the IR section is still such a new thing that because it started about a year ago, that it's still new, and everybody's still trying to figure it out. So unfortunately, I'm not a good candidate to help you navigate that part. I'm sorry. Um, Okay, I would like to know if a reason for rejection is when the admissions committee thinks an applicant is not able to finance their MBA with their own resources and have to ask for a loan to finance the whole MBA program. I don't think that that's an issue at all. I think that um, they don't look at your ability to finance it. I mean, you you would have to finance it, but they don't see that as a concern. I don't think they hold that against anybody. Okay. How do B schools react to the age factor for professionally experienced people who want to pursue an MBA and change domains? Is 35 plus too old, or does the age not matter at all if you have other factors like solid GPA, 660 GMAT score, sound domain knowledge going in your favor? Well, for older applicants, and I say anybody above like between 30 and 32 starts to become older, and I can say I went to business school when I was 30, um, uh, so I guess I speak from experience. I've had clients who are in their mid 30s apply, and the most important thing is to really show the admissions committee why you need an MBA, why you need it now, and what you want to do next. And those why MBA and why now are so important, because you need to be able to convince the admissions committee that why you didn't go get an MBA when you were 27, 28, 29. They need to really feel that it's worth it for you now, and what you're going to do with it. How is that going to change your life? Now, if you're looking to change careers, you also have to make a compelling argument as to why that's the right career for you. Anybody has to do that. So they don't like seeing a sharp right turn. Everybody should have skills that they've built in their previous careers that can help them in their future careers. Even if you're moving, from an analytical, very quantitative focused career to something a little on softer, there must be skills that you are using from your past that leads to your future. Okay. How do you know if you are applying at the right time? If you switch to a new job and are there for less than a year, when do you apply? Does that hurt you to have less expertise in your position? Um, the right time a lot of times will depend on if you have good leadership that you've built in your previous job, number one. Number two, what you want to do next. So if the only way to do what you want to do next is to apply to business school, then you might be in a little bit more of a hurry. If you've changed jobs, something that I would wonder is, does that new job lead to your next job, to your post MBA job? That matters to the admissions committee. Or if you're just if you change jobs and you're still far away from what you want to do next, I think that would potentially be confusing to the admissions committee. Why did you change jobs? That would be something you would have to clearly articulate. Somebody asked about the success rate of MBA missions. Stats will help. We do not release any success rates, and the reason we don't is because we would have every reason to steer people toward schools that we were sure that they could get in, so that our success rate would rise. Instead, we support people wherever they decide that they really want to go to school. We lay out the risks. We help guide you as much as possible. But if somebody really wants to apply to Harvard Business School, we're saying go for it. Go for it because you don't ever know. So we don't release our success rates. We don't even track our success rates because there's so many other factors that also go into the admissions process outside of how we're helping our clients. Okay. How does MBA mission cater to international students choosing right school, right domain, financial aid, counseling, etc.? We often have international clients, and a lot of it will depend. Are you interested in U.S. based school or non-U.S. schools? But we do lots and lots of non-U.S. schools also. We aren't just a U.S. school focused consultancy. We do lots and lots of schools outside the U.S. Okay. How would you best explain the trade-off between work experience and GMAT GPA? For example, if there's a significant growth accomplishment from year 3 to 4 that would help compensate for weaker scores. Um, if you're somebody who has a lot of great work experience, I think that helps you deflect a little bit that a weak GMAT GPA score. Um, it's still hard because a lot of focus goes on to that GMAT because that's the only thing that schools can compare you to other candidates and they can compare their school to other schools. So they do still hold a lot of weight. But if you have a major thing in your career that's really notable, the admissions committee is looking for that and they're interested in that. So I don't want to say that it will compensate, but I think it also adds to the strength of your profile. I have sent in applications now waiting for the results. What would you recommend to overcome nerves during this wait period? Oh, I know it's so hard. The waiting period is the hardest part. There's nothing you can do. My best advice is do not um, read the message boards because no one knows anything. So you just have to sit tight and understand that whatever happens, it happens, and you just have to think that you put your best foot forward in submitting your applications. I always say to my clients, my goal for you is when you hit send on that application, you feel like you did the best work you could do. And that's then it's out of your hands. Okay. How important is GMAT a deciding factor for scholarship at B schools? I would say the GMAT does come into play a lot in terms of the scholarships. Um, you have a high, if your GMAT score is higher than the median at a lot of these schools, then I think you're in a nice spot. I've seen clients who, and not even at the necessarily at the best or the top schools, but at other schools too. If they really want you, they will come up with money for you. Um, okay, and we have time for a few more questions. So if you keep writing them in, it's okay. We still have a few more minutes. How do admissions committees view reapplicants? I think the most important thing for a reapplicant is to show the admissions committee that at least one thing, if not more, has changed in your profile over the time since you last applied. Too many people just reapply and they haven't really changed anything in their application. But if you've gotten a work promotion or if you have taken on a new project or you organize something outside of work, all those things are great things to include in your reapplication. If someone is lacking in some of the quant background, use of the GRE might be easier, but could writing the GMAT and doing well on the math side be helpful to point to your ability to handle the math? Absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't say don't take the GMAT at all. I said, some people who take the GRE take it because they don't have as strong of the quant background, so they're less intimidating. But the GMAT, if you did well on the GMAT, that would be a great thing for you to be able to hold up. Okay, for the start to finish package, the MBA mission start to finish package, how many consultants will help for each school? You work with one consultant through the entire process. So that consultant is assigned to you, and that's the person you work with through and through. We work as a team in the sense if we're struggling with something, or we can turn to other consultants. Can share information. We constantly are meeting together to learn new things and work on new things. So you have the benefit of the team, but you are going to get the individualized attention from one consultant. Okay. I might have missed a question. Oh, no, right here. Do you recommend submitting to first choice schools in round one and then second choice schools in round two, since the deposits for round one can sometimes be due before the notification for round two? Oh, excuse me that my doorbell just rang. um, the it's sometimes hard to play it like that. If you're going to apply in round one, I would try to apply to as many schools as possible. Sometimes you have to submit your deposit before the application, before the notification dates. That's just the way it goes. It's unfortunate. But if you're really interested in applying to business school, I would try to get as much in round one. Obviously, don't apply unless you're ready to apply. How would you rank the weightage of the GMAT score, GPA, work experience essay? There's no way to break out, what's weighted where. I would say that all of them are looked at. As I said, there's the academic component, there's the work component, and there's the life outside of work component. And honestly, there's also the recommendation component. So all of those factors together go into your profile. And so they're all equally important. Um, is it necessary to show leadership, position designation, and extracurricular activities? Absolutely. Showing that leadership in your extracurricular activities is terrific. That's so, so, so important, especially if you're lacking in some leadership in your um, professional life. If you're a lot of people who are applying to business school are at the earliest stages of their career, they're the low man on the totem pole. So if you're able to show leadership through what you do outside of work, that's a great thing to kind of really showcase your abilities. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, so I think we're actually going to start wrapping up. It looks like our questions have finished coming in. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out today, and I hope you found this presentation useful. Again, please sign up for our free consultations. They're a great chance to just bounce things off our consulting team and whatever you want to talk about. And join us at another webinar or online boot camp. Um, you know, please keep us in mind. And thanks again.